Tells me.
All right, you do the opening.
Oh, okay. This is episode 8, the Edwin and Paul podcast. It has been a bit of a brief hiatus. I think it's more than a month.
No,
Um,
yeah, more than a month actually. Yeah,
for your travels, and then now we're back, and many things have happened in the world.
and we're going to be talking about Rocco's Basilisk, supply management. All
Roko. I mispronounced it last time. It's Roko, like Rococo.
right, break this
Um,
down for us. I'm curious to learn about this.
what?
Break the Rocco's Basilisk thing down for us. I'm curious to learn about it.
Okay, so the thought experiment, now it's been popularized, but we mentioned it, or it was on the podcast. It's the royal we. I mentioned it, but the podcast, it was mentioned on our podcast well before or actually like a couple weeks before. It's kind of funny. The Actually, I think it was the same like day that we. But anyway, I don't remember. I'll look it up. But the podcast that I mentioned, Roko's Basilisk, um, preceded the episode of Silicon Valley, and that's the Mike Judge show, right? The guy who did King of the Hill. He's a physics major, fellow physics major, and Grusk, Elon, and Grimes, who all the nerd communities everywhere are fangirling about. Um, you knew, you heard about this, right? Yeah.
No,
Or you've really been okay. Wow. All right. Elon Musk.
I've been doing other things for a month.
Been busy. Been busy. Um. Well, anyway, Elon Musk. His. I guess he's now dating Grimes, who's
That girl with
someone.
black hair.
Yeah. Sometimes she has black hair. Yeah.
3 wives now. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
3 wives
Well,
and
he's.
dating someone. He's got a bunch of kids too.
That's true. Wait. It's a. Oh, you're saying it's what it's a why? What did you say?
Elon Musk has had 3 wives.
Oh, he's had a lot of wives. One of which was in Westworld. Was the one with the the if this was scaled down, I guess. But the robot, the death robot woman with the blonde hair. Well, they were all dead. I mean, they all ended up. Yeah, I'm spoiling it.
He's having.
But the actress in Westworld was his like second wife, I want to say. She might have been the one. I don't know. He's had a bunch of kids, multiple wives. Now he's dating Grimes, the musician, who is into apparently the enough of the rationalist community and Slate Star Codex type community to know about, to have independently known about and possibly mentioned in a song, I think, Roko's Basilisk. So she and he apparently talked about this and bonded. Now they are conjoined
Basilisk.
in some word input. What? Okay. So it's a thought experiment. I think it's named after the handle of the gentleman who created it or first hypothesized it. The idea, well, first hypothesized this incarnation of it. But this sort of modern, hyper secular version of it. But the idea is that if there's a future AI that'll be able to, sort of backtrack through history and see what everyone has always done, or highly deterministic sense, which is kind of not how it works in real physics. But anyway, the point is that if it could backtrack and determine who realized that the AI was coming, and who did or did not, you're gonna be all right there, who did or did not anticipate, or no, if they did anticipate it, who did or did not try their absolute hardest to bring it into being as soon as possible. So if they didn't, it'll find people who like, oh yeah, there'll be an AI in the future that's going to totally do this stuff, but then they didn't change their behavior. Then that AI would punish them for all eternity and make a million clones of them and punish all the clones, like in Black Mirror, the Star Trek, the inverted Star Trek thing where it took all the nerd tropes and made them really fucked up. But that's another, yeah. So that's relatively recent too, the Black Mirror last season. But anyway, so that's Roko's Basilisk. That's apparently that is a topic that is so distressing to some rationalists that they basically banned discussion of it. I think it's kind of
They banned discussion of it.
well, it's called a basilisk because if you look at it, you turn to stone, right? So a basilisk is a topic that, if addressed head on and fully contemplated, has some, I guess, some damaging effect, or doesn't, it results in a negative outcome. And if they're all about utilons, the unit of utility, which is ridiculous. Yeah, but that's seriously the utilon. I think that's how it's pronounced. But if utilitarians, they're like, okay, wait, okay, there's this topic and it's going to have a huge negative value to spread it, so I'm just going to not contemplate that. Which, of course, they're assuming that they're correct in their initial assessment that it's this destructive thing, which is leads you down this. Okay, well, there's definitely going to be an AI that I have to immanentize the eschaton. And if I don't do everything possible, it's very like kind of mind virusy. But it's only certain people, I think, are convinced by that. It's possible. It sounds possible. I mean, not the cloning you a million times and then torturing all of them. Like, it's not.
Ron and his girlfriend.
So they bonded over that horrifying thought experiment, and I guess that he tweeted about it. I think he made a joke. It was Roko's Basilisk, which maybe there's more depth to that than I don't know, but I maybe I'm showing my ignorance by not having looked up. But yeah, it's just like Renaissance-y, old timey. All right, but anyway, Hoffman? No, but anyway, so yeah, so that's the Elon. Oh, so also another basilisk within the rationalist community, or sort of adjacent to the rationalist community, this gentleman, Phil Sandifer. He wrote a book called Neo-Reaction of Basilisk. So he was implying that the whole sort of proto-intellectualized alt-right sphere was a basilisk unto itself, that if stared into would, which is kind of Nietzschean, right? Sort of the peer into the void, all right, whatever the quote is. But yeah, so that gets into all that crazy politics. That's one, they like discourse about things, those rationalists. Such a pretentious name, though. But anyway, it's just, we're the rational ones. Yeah, so there's other topics. That was, I mean, I don't know if you're equally Elon Musk fangirl, but I like what he's doing.
Hate on him.
What?
I don't understand how people hate on him.
It is really weird. They love to do it. I think it's like
how and it's typically people from the left too. And it's just like,
yeah, he's like a boss tweed, like / I guess frat douche. I don't know what they're trying to put him as. He's a dweeb.
He's a capitalist. So
if you look up the photo of him, or video from, well, there's photos from then too. But if you look up the video of him getting his first car, or his first really nice car, he's a dweeb. That was all he was. It was just a nerd. He's just a nerd that's grown up. But anyway, sorry.
No, I saw that. I was like, whatever. But it was pretty dope though. He had like the Lambo. You could tell like he knew that it was all gonna be like a temporary thing. Like he couldn't just like ride his Lambo for the rest of his life. But he was definitely like enjoying the novelty of it after they exited from PayPal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's the PayPal mafia. I think
we
mentioned them before.
Like Luke Nosek, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel. There's a Russian dude. I think it's Jan Talon.
You getting a lot of pings I hear a lot of pings.
Yeah, people are messaging me on Facebook. I'll X out of
All the cooler people you met in Cali.
it. Yes, Paul. Yes. It's hard being cool, Paul.
I'm sure it is.
Very difficult. Um,
Well, you know, it's not easy being a dweeb. Hey! No?
I gotta get ready to head out.
hey, Aaron.
Do the podcast in the buff.
Can I say Aaron?
What? No, he's not decent.
But yeah,
It's fucking hot out. He's Albanian though.
But yeah, I really don't get. First of all, it was awesome to see him do things like that. Because like I don't know, people. I don't hate on people for like making a ton of money buying shit. You know, like I don't know.
Especially when you're clearly actively making use of your weird sort of celebrity meme billionaire niche and like and what's the Iron Man thing to take us to Mars and not and fucking save the environment and shit.
Yeah,
It seems completely okay.
yeah, like he made hundreds of millions of dollars and risked all of it, to start a fucking car company and a rocket company. People are hating on this.
The important question is, do you think he goes to the Bilderberg, grease him up, and with the masks and the?
I'd be surprised if he hasn't worn a weird mask at a party.
Well,
it's very.
I guess if it's billionaires doing it, it's very easy if you're doing it ironically for that to drift into.
If you were a billionaire and you had billionaire friends, you would ironically have like one of those parties. I feel like
where you ironically sacrifice virgins. What? It makes perfect sense. It's like an adiabatic transition into just.
It'd be great. Can you imagine like Sam Harris having a conversation with someone about Pizzagate? I really want to see that.
Alex Jones and him to just
no. Like a
dueling styles.
Like a rational person. Somebody who's too crazy to be like, yeah, like Podesta.
Swan. You could ask the goodly Mormon boy who got whatever after Ben Swan, right? Is that his name?
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that wasn't fair. It was just like, yo, this is what Pizzagate's all about. People are like, nope, you're out.
Yeah. Anywho, so there's been an addition. I don't know. Did we ever showcase this on the? So this is the I think this is from 2008, maybe. Against against Barack Obama. So this must have been their primaries. No, okay, they got Dick Cheney and John McCain. Because maybe they did this early in the. But anyway, so 2007. Okay, so this was Obama. So the primaries has not been opened. Yeah. So if anyone wants it, we're willing to ship it for thousands of dollars. They would have to pay us. That's what I mean. But it's a nutcracker with Hillary's legs. Yeah. See that. And then I saw these at the gas station, and
naturally,
this is naturally you can
put that right there.
And you'll notice, and I'm not gonna cut the little piece on here to destroy the value of this important thing. So I'm not going to show that it can do it, but we can simulate that he is in fact completely okay after each. It's a very deep metaphor here.
Capable.
It doesn't. Yeah,
it's
the phallic exception.
The deepest metaphor you will ever see.
That might be because it's got her cavernous, hoo-ha. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna.
I don't think she snuck a snook up her sniz in that one, though.
That has been. I'm glad South Park has also made a. Jeez, that is so. Oh, it's really this therapeutic. Yoing. But
is it just me or is Jordan Peterson getting more and more absurd?
More and more absurd. I think.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
Well, what's he started to? Is he because of the state enforced? No, wait. What am I thinking?
I haven't been keeping up, but I watched a couple of videos.
Enforced monogamy. That's.
Well, I don't know. The whole thing of like you need God for morality. Let's just like it.
Is that what it was? Is that what the term enforced monogamy? Is that what he was?
No, that's not what enforced monogamy is about. It's rationality rules and Cosmic Skeptic did a video. I don't know if you know who those guys are, but it's like popped up on my feed recently. I haven't been watching too much YouTube stuff, but that was one of them. And I broke down the argument, and I was just like, okay, like I don't know. I'm really like I have my disagreements with Harris, but his view that morality is objective is one that I've subscribed to pretty strongly.
Yeah. Objective, but also he thinks it's discoverable, like experimentally, or just like technically.
Yeah. I mean, like his whole thing is like, okay, so, like in medicine, for example, right? We assume that, like some things are healthier and some things are not healthier, right? And that it's not based on like people's preferences or whatever. It's like some things allow you to have a well-functioning body throughout life, and some don't, right? So we say like this is healthy. Well, his argument is that we could do a similar thing for morality or like moral actions, and the axiom in that domain naturally would be what leads to more human well-being than not. Once you can agree that there are certain things that lead to more human well-being than not, then it's objectively moral. And the question is like discovering what morality is given a certain amount of choices, and intention also factors into whether a decision was made was moral or not moral. So the question is, if you think the assumption about well-being stands up enough to make it objective. If you do, then we can say then morality is an actual thing. And obviously, like on the other end of the spectrum, so you have well-being one end of the spectrum, maximal well-being for everyone, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the worst possible pain for everyone at all times.
That's where they converge, I think. Peterson and the like a description of a hell. I think Sam Harris can imagine a secular hell does.
I mean, it's basically like you have heaven on one side and hell on the other side.
Right. So the heaven part, and specifically how to get there, that the sort of terminology used, Sam Harris thinks that you can fully hash this out in a rational manner,
and it will fully hash it out. Not in all cases,
right?
But that in many cases you can. And in some cases where we can't, we might be able to do so in the future. But so just the point that you can, in some cases, and potentially can do so in the future, means that it's there actually is. Well, actually, I'll take that back. The main thing about whether it's about what makes it objective or not is. Like, would anybody disagree with the idea that the worst possible pain for everyone for eternity is bad?
Right. No, I said that's where they converge. They're basically in agreement on what is the bad. I know when I'm in pain.
Peterson,
that's real.
Heaven and hell. No, but I think,
or I suppose, real enough to me, that I can't be made to not care about it.
Peter is saying like you need God, right, to determine this. Whereas Harris is saying like we can know without.
I should say he has said that some people need God. I don't know if he actually he's implied that by saying that there are secular people. It's like even the Catholics think that.
He says all atheists are religious.
Right. Okay. You're right. Which I think that's one of those jabs that you're absolutely right. Everybody, it's like a little meme, like like anti well, if it is anti-me, it wouldn't go viral or whatever. But it's like
Not all that.
It's like the enforced monogamy thing where people are like, "What is he talking about? What?"
Okay, so beyond even like I mean the argument that all atheists. So he says like.
I kind of want to get back to the well-being thing, but the atheist. Yeah, we can.
Says like all. He said religion is what you do, is not what you believe.
Well, then that is a Protestant. Well, depends on which Protestant actually, but there's
clearly not possible, right? Because like you're in Christianity, you're required to believe in Jesus in order to go to heaven.
Yes.
How?
I mean, you have to take certain, and it depends on sort of which version of Christianity you subscribe to. Some of them are pretty open about it.
Even if there's one version where a belief.
No, UUs are kind of Christian. Well, do they count as Christian then? I guess Christian, the word implies it's one of the ones that are like, you must accept the miracles.
Yes, right? So it's like,
well,
I mean, his point, which, it's like, you have to, like, religion isn't what you believe, it's what you act out. Our morality in the West is based on Christian principles. Therefore, people who aren't even Christian are acting out a Christian ethic.
So that's not that. That's just, again, it's a thing that'll piss people off, but it can be argued both ways. I could totally see an argument. I could prepare one and make one sort of ramblingly like I always do, but against that, and I could also make one for that because it's a little nugget of.
You can't argue for a lot of things, but for someone who people routinely say is like the most influential intellectual in the West right now, it's just like
conservative intellectual in the U.S. I mean, Chomsky's still.
Chomsky's like not even liberal. He's more like he's an anarcho-syndicalist, dude. Like most Democrats. Like Sam Harris is probably like a mainstream Democrat.
I think Chomsky would agree with you if you said he was not a liberal. That is a correct statement about Chomsky. Yeah. But so I guess you were saying because liberal versus conservative. But I think if you tried to just
left versus right.
Yeah, if you stuck it on one spectrum, obviously they would be pretty far apart economically. But okay, can I just the well-being thing you mentioned before? So there are. You're sort of or not you actually, Sam. It would be saying that there are if we could peg certain specific. No, I'm using that particular, but the specific sort of term. It's sort of like the Constitution. It could be interpreted, I suppose, but that there are these objective positive things. I know there's objective negatives where you can be like everybody would fucking hate that unless they were like an insane masochist or something crazy. But the positive ones, it's not as clear that they are like permanent through all eons or that they're like so like when we're talking about like pain, animal cruelty, stuff like that. There are there are dynamical aspects of that. And wait, what?
That's why intention matters.
So I was going to give an analogy, which would be the historical example of dogs that there was in like the 1850s or whatever, when sort of fewer and fewer dogs that had been specialized for many centuries, in some cases millennia. They had been specialized for just one particular rescue dog, pointing dog, whatever, the dog that sits on a Chinese emperor's head and warms him or something. Like there's all sorts of dogs that had very specific functions, and they had sort of evolved into those sort of phenotypic niches. And then in around the 1850s, a lot of those niches just kind of went away, or they became much less numerous. And there was this sense that we must preserve the breeds for dog shows and stuff. And it probably mixed in with all these other political ideas of the day, but it was around the 1850s to like early 1900s, I guess. They sort of codified the traits of a bulldog and the traits of the Ridgeback dog, the one that there's one that and if you look at like photos from the 1800s of these dogs, a lot of them don't actually look like what they used to look like. They got certain characteristics that were said to define the breed, and then those were bred in, and they had you had to have like great grandparents were all the same dog. For one, this happened for a while, and you ended up like the Ridgeback dogs. Those are now like holes going into its spine. Like it's in horrible pain. I think there's all these problems that those dogs have. They get infections at least. And like that's because dog shows selected those. They picked a particular. Okay, that's the objective measure of morality, and of at least the positive of morality. Being negative, I do think we can get a huge overlap because it's kind of a different. It's kind of the same way that we feel a loss more than we feel an equal gain. We doesn't seem to equal out in all through life, and it leaves you just tragically undersatisfied or whatever. But generally that cruel joke is played partly because of an evolutionary. There's a break off or a cutoff where if you get below a certain amount, you're dead, and you just can't. There's no you couldn't go super below death and then come back out from the underworld. It's only in archetypal space or whatever. But you could become a billionaire where you just whole human lives are just being washed away or born or created based on your weird whatever whims. I don't even know what those people fucking do. But the fractional representation of that my point is just that if we get back to the objective measure part and the analogy, it's just that if we're really fucking up a lot of those dog breeds, like they're seriously medically fucked up, it's because we have diverged from some ethereal, mystical, holistic, whatever hippie word you want to use, some of probably a lot of negative spaces, really, but that evolutionarily were probably what they were to be defined by all the shepherding needs historically, that world line for like whole populations that had a particular dog that did shepherding. So it would change over time. Like sometimes you'd have to resist the local diseases. Sometimes you wouldn't, or something.
I don't understand how this relates to how morality can be affected.
You do or do not?
Not.
Oh, I was saying that over time, your world and your options will change inevitably. And so your morals might change. So like right now, we're all freaking out about, well, not all, but abortion is, right, because of the SCOTUS change recently. Roe v. Wade is on the chopping block, supposedly. And they're just, because it would, of course, they'll get a conservative in, and of course, it'll be a pro-lifer. And then, of course, that would overturn the majority, the blah, blah, blah. And then people are seeing, the dystopia ahead where they can't vacuum deflate a skull. But the point being that that's all rendered irrelevant if we have a technological advance where you can carry a fetus to term outside of the womb, right? Because then you just have Christian charities, right? Oh, put your money where your mouth is. Take care of these people. Like if you're going to force that person to not just go ahead with the procedure, and
I still don't understand how this relates to objective.
So do you understand? Okay. So things in the world changed, and they introduced something that was essentially impossible to anticipate, at least a century ago.
Why intention matters.
For morality, it does. Well, no, I get mad at people who have good intentions. I do that every fucking day. Are you kidding me?
That doesn't mean.
No, I'd like to punish people who know that for being that willful ignorance is a thing you should be. What? Go ahead.
That doesn't mean they're not moral agents. But okay, so the point isn't that we have all information for all time and can make decisions based on that.
No. My point is that we don't.
Right.
And we can't.
My point.
And that we can't even know how much we can.
That's my point as well.
Or at least we don't individually, locally in this moment know. All through the eons, there have been certain functions worked on.
Yeah, but that doesn't make them better.
It does make them unique in a I'd say, and this is in a physics sense, or at least computational sense. There are some functions that have to just chew their own tail they just can't. You can't really speed them up because you don't know. They're not spigot functions.
Okay, but that's clearly not the point, right? Like the point is, can you say something is, maybe not in the future, but right now, right? Based on what we know. Some action is more likely than not to lead to increased well-being for the most people.
I used to think that you could pretty reasonably say that. I have changed my beliefs. I honestly don't think it's that obvious.
I'm not saying you can't make mistakes, but there's clearly some things.
I mean, sure. If there's a cutoff where there's going to be a famine and a bunch of people are going to die unless they get your experimental food that grows 3 heads, then that's important. That's actually great.
So
but if you use that to just allow inequality to grow, because you're like, oh, we can make food even cheaper for the poor, so that's even easier. Then they're all getting poisoned.
Paul, you're making this too complicated.
No, it is complicated. That's my point.
Or at least you're not understanding what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that if we can just say that we should stop this famine, not like we should. There's obviously an argument like, hey, if these people learn from the famine, they'll be more resistant in the future, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You can make that argument. But if you and I can agree that if we see a famine happening, we probably should stop it. Right?
Okay. Yes, we should stop it. What if stopping it means poisoning all the people a little bit? That's okay if they're going to die.
Talking, dude.
Okay. I thought you had when you said the famine thing.
If we can agree that on any measure of what well-being is, and we should optimize for that, if we can agree that in that instance, acting in that way would increase human well-being, then morals are objective. Because it means that on some level, it is possible to say that some given set of actions are good and the opposite are bad. Now, the question is like whether that would apply to a wide range of things. And that's a more complicated debate that we can have. And in some ways, we're always having. But if we can just say that, then it means that morals are objective. And we don't necessarily need God or morality to be objective.
But, like, my morality would include, like, human flourishing. Is, like, whatever that, it's a very open-ended, but, like, I want people to, but, like, Aaron has an equally morally consistent, I don't know if he's over there in the kitchen or in his room, but he has an equally morally consistent worldview, but his ethics have a almost exact opposite, at least in that one domain. We align intrinsically with a lot of others, but he's anti-natalist. He would want life is pain, right?
Are we talking about ethics?
Yes.
All right, I'm down.
All right.
But I'm not putting on clothes.
All right.
But I think Aaron's wrong.
Where did I put that splitter? Sweet. Well, okay, we'll just go with audio good? Does it sound? Here, wait, you say something in a moment. Yeah, say something, Edwin.
Yo.
All right. You didn't hear an echo?
I did.
You did. And you're still hearing it? It's probably because I got the... All right, one sec. Let me get the splitter.
Maybe check the floor.
Where?
The floor's a large place. Maybe you put it in one of the boxes of junk and stuff?
No. I had it. I had it like right before the podcast. I know I did. Oh well. This is the bag that it was in. Bought a new one. Well, I have this splitter, but it's shitty.
No, whatever.
All right.
Let me get
Fooey and Pshaw.
Yo, get your tickets.
You know what? You're Albanian. You're taking the side without the fan on it.
Paul.
What?
Get your tickets.
My Otuba?
Your tickets for Rhode Island.
Oh, yes. I will. This is all on the podcast.
You can edit it or whatever.
All right, one
We
second.
need to crop out the fact that I'm definitely in briefs. Oh, cool. Sorry.
Oh, here, wait.
Come on, I'm wearing a hoodie.
But you...
Aaron,
You're a shitty Albanian. All right, that's fine.
What's that?
Okay, we'll both get a little air.
got the Albanian surfer thing.
Oh shit! Now we can't hear
Wait,
you.
hang
I'm
on.
messing everything up.
Don't
All
say
right.
anything important.
Joan.
Okay, say important things.
Well, you've got the Albanian Cali dude look going on right now.
Oh yeah.
Cali
The Albanian what?
Cali, you got.
thing going on with the hair and the slightly open hoodie with the chest.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about the Hindi or Hindu end of day Hindi.
Aaron, I'm trying
End
to
of
get Paul.
days.
I'm trying to get Paul to lift weights. You have to help me
I'm trying to get him. We're trying to get him what?
to lift weights.
Oh, lift weights, Paul.
Be muscular, but you.
Yeah, I'm not
We
for
should
it.
both-
Lift rocks. Lift like living and like lions.
Nah, dude, you have to lift weights too, Aaron.
Okay, I'll lift weights. Paul can lift lions.
I feel like mine's more dangerous.
All right, so we're talking about
A lion falling on you is not as bad as a big solid weight.
Aaron,
They're
you're probably going
both
to agree with
dangerous.
me to some extent here.
Down a little bit.
wait, turn it down.
Yeah, it's pretty loud on mine.
Oh, mine is super
You're
quiet.
You're super quiet.
Yeah.
Shit.
Wait, maybe we can
I can get
say
it
some
to
things.
Hey, hey, hey.
Okay, that's good. Wait.
There we go. Okay, it was the
All right. Okay. Cool.
So we're talking about whether morals are objective or not. We're gonna
Sam Harris specifically, and I don't think they're objective. I don't think that they're so ephemeral that you can just kind of that's the morality isn't real. No.
They're either
I'm
objective.
just saying there's so much we don't know.
They're either
You
objective.
have to approach them with subjective thought or like
I think.
borderline magical thinking.
Paul, they're either objective or they're not.
Well, they can
No.
be intersubjective.
What?
They can be intersubjective, for example.
What is
Where,
that?
like,
I don't know.
it's something subjective, but on which everyone seems to roughly agree. Everyone has roughly the same opinion.
Okay,
I
okay.
was saying the bad things are objectively like that.
Okay, well,
What is he?
so the question is, do we agree that, like, as an axiom for morality, that what the end goal should be to increase net human well-being? Now, you would disagree with that because what you would say is it's about decreasing suffering to the greatest extent possible.
I wouldn't even say that. So the decreasing, my view in terms of negative utilitarianism, if we're talking about my reasonable view as opposed to my like completely logically consistent view, it's that if you decrease suffering, you can sort of more wisely let overall well-being do its own thing, because it's very difficult to define overall well-being. And it's much easier to define like pain and suffering and horror. So that's the
That's
sort
not
of,
difficult, though. I mean, we know certain things increase well-being.
well, we define, so I mean, different people define well-being very differently. Like some people, like this kind of goes back to Heights Moral Pillars. Some people will really appreciate autonomy, and some other people will really appreciate being like in like insular cultural groups. And those two are at odds with one another. So which one do you pick?
Well, but that's a conversation.
Neither.
That's a conversation we can have, right?
Yeah, it's a conversation we can have, except that what people, it sort of forces people to choose. In any case, that's, I don't want to get bogged down in the utilitarian argument, because ultimately my antinatalism is a sort of trolly but true thing. My general
Haha, only serious.
Yeah, haha, only serious. My general view in terms of ethical consistency is that, one, it is intersubjective, but that's still too utilitarian. It's more objective in the way that, and don't take this the wrong way, I'll clarify in a bit, but it's more objective in the way that math or physics is objective. Not in that, there is like, in the universe, there's an objective good, but in like a sort of game theoretic sense where you can find rules that lead to optimal states for everyone, and ultimately finding those rules, what those rules are and how those dynamics play out is objective.
Right.
And so your moral requirement is basically to behave such that you are not defecting from those rules and ruining it for everyone in the long, and sort of like basically that you're not defecting, so that you're not trying to gain an advantage at the expense of everyone else.
Right. But I mean, so like when we say objective, I think we
But what if you're gonna discover the cure for cancer? Is my point. Like there are ways that a rational person could be put in a scenario like a trolley problem where they no, okay, sorry, but go ahead.
Yeah, but when we say objective, I think we think about something like gravity, right? Where it's just like, like you have to make certain assumptions, right?
Yeah, well, you
have to like assume Laplace's demon isn't deceiving you, sure.
Yeah, you have to make certain assumptions, but I mean,
but we can still make those assumptions and say like objectively, gravity exists to the extent. I mean,
yeah, I don't think objectively morality exists. I think objectively you can find equilibria. That objectively dynamics will sort of play out the way that they would have to.
What if we accept that axiom though?
Hmm?
What if we accept the axiom that it's all about increasing human well-being? And
I'm fine with accepting the axiom so long as you can define the axiom.
And acknowledge that even if we accept that axiom, probably the majority of moral questions that could be answered are not things that we have information to make the best decision on at any given moment. Even if we accept that that's true, but say that well-being, increasing well-being is sort of the foundational, I guess, framework to think about morality, then I think it has to objectively exist. I mean, it doesn't exist in the way that the sun exists, but it exists like to the extent that human beings exist at all.
Mm-hmm.
I would say even like the antinatalism point is actually like pointing towards the same thing, where it's like, how can we decrease suffering, right? And your approach would be, okay, well, let's just not, continue to have children. Okay,
but I think the only people who'd be convinced by that argument are like really sweet people who are smart enough to understand it, and those people, I want those. If we're gonna, because you're not gonna convince everyone.
Saturday morning cartoon.
So everyone else will breed, and they won't.
Wait, also literal Saturday morning cartoon supervillains.
That's true. Enacting that on.
They would be convinced.
Wait, is there a specific reference being made?
I think that there's multiple, probably.
Oh, okay. We're like all suffering must end, all humanity.
I would argue that there are ways, at least for the vast, probably like everyone, for people to change the context. Not everyone, like 99.something% humans, but to change the context of their consciousness enough that life is less suffering than it is well-being.
Change the content of their consciousness? Are you talking about are you talking about stoicism, or are you talking about like
microdosing?
Drugs?
Yeah.
Well, maybe in the future, drugs.
Yeah, but that creates its own weird paradoxical situation because
I'm not talking about stoicism and meditation.
Okay, but I mean, so talking about stoicism and meditation, sure, people can do that, but then you get even sort of further into the situation. I guess I'm going to bring it back to drugs because I think sort of they amount to the same thing, where like you can have a situation hypothetically where everything is awful and everyone's fucking happy. Like literally just internally happy.
How would that
great?
Yeah, how does that work? I feel like, are you just saying because they have a little chip in their head and you think it's classically able to simulate happiness?
Even if how everything is awful.
No, you wouldn't be able to clone that state without.
It's just like
how sampling from the environment currently. That's how
whether everything
coherent data.
Whether everything is awful is based on like judgment of people, right?
Yeah, to some extent, but like what you're advocating for then is like let's just remove people's judgment.
No, I'm not necessarily advocating for that because it's not clear to me that that's the best way to increase human well-being. Although if the drug could increase well-being and not just have everybody be on Molly all the time, there's probably a better argument for that. I can't wait for the Molly without hangover drug, by the way. That's going to be great. But I just think that
the country tried opiates and it didn't work
out too well.
It went really bad.
No, but I don't see how everybody can love their experience. But I mean, I know this gets like super Brave New World, but I don't see how everyone can love their experience, and it not being a good thing.
Yeah,
especially if it's sustainable. If it's sustainable.
Yeah, well, that's the sustainability part. I am now of the opinion
Wait, I
that
have
attempts
an
at
objection.
utopian perfection or of some sort of
You're gonna say it's
grand
not
world
possible.
plans. What?
Are you gonna say it's not possible?
Well, I'm going to say not only
Because I don't
does it
think
look
that's an
not
interesting
possible,
question.
I don't think it's proven not possible.
Yeah.
But I think not only does it not look possible, I think that certain extreme variations of that sort of motivation have disastrous consequences, and that has been repeatedly demonstrated.
Maybe so, but I don't think that's
no question. But that's just
okay,
like
who's gonna.
Here, I have one question. Let's say that you could live in a state of eternal bliss, or not eternal bliss, whatever length of bliss. But you would have to like
flying out in space.
But you would have to drop your IQ to like 5. Would you want that?
Mm-mm.
That's so difficult because a lot of like the pleasure I get in life is.
It would just be a different pleasure. It would be a different pleasure than the one you're used to.
What does that
But
mean?
it would just be pleasure.
So
what is the different pleasure from what I'm used? Because I feel like some people
like
what?
The contemplative life, being able to reflect on things like beauty and existence of the universe and history and things like that. I find that highly pleasurable.
What feeling do you get when you do that?
What's the name for it? For intellectual pleasure?
Whatever feeling you get
there's
when
a
you
term
do that.
for it.
Let's say that we can give you a drug to give you that same feeling.
Wait, you're talking about eudaimonia?
I think that sounds like it. It has an
E. Is well-being.
Wait, a who?
Aristotle.
All right, but let's say we give you a drug to give you whatever feeling you get from that contemplative, like little contemplative joy, and let's say we'll give you that same feeling, but you don't actually contemplate.
I still don't know how that. I mean, it's possible, but I can't simulate it. You know, I don't know what would happen then, because that doesn't. It's kind of like, what if an immovable object meets
it's not like that at all. It's
force?
a bit like pain symbolic.
I have a hard time accepting that because
that sounds exactly like a variant of unstoppable force. Maybe.
Right, except that that's the thing we can actually do.
Okay, well then I would know
brain damage.
You can do it.
Yep.
Then let's do it.
Symbolic, you can look at it.
Okay.
I actually
I just.
All right. That would take me on a huge tangent.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, but I just like. I would hypothetically be okay with that, but the reason that I hesitate is because I can't imagine it. If you could give me the option of experiencing it for a day and then make up,
I'd give it a shot. Yeah,
I'd give it a shot. But I can't imagine genuine well-being without consciousness.
Oh, you're conscious. You're just
without awareness.
This is why when you change a screen, when you add an external screen or change your monitor's visual settings, it has that little 12-second countdown. Because if you fuck up, it's that's the only thing you can use to view.
Let's say
it's the self-reference problem.
Let's say that you can go back immediately.
Oh, okay. Well, then I test it, sure, and then I would tell you whether I would or wouldn't.
But before you test it, let's say that you would definitely be like, yeah, this is exactly the same feeling, and I like it.
And then I do it.
Oh, then that me would do it.
Yeah, but is it better now that you did it? Is it actually better that you did it? You've basically, what you've lost is some level of authenticity. You no longer have the actual thing that leads to that feeling. You simply have the feeling. And now what you're saying...
Yeah, I have a question. Let's assume that LSD leads to like a deep, like blissful type state that, you would only experience if you've done years and years and years of meditation. But now we have it. It's a tab. We can do it.
Yeah.
Is that like...
I think that's Jung's beware of our unearned wisdom thing.
Yeah, but does that mean like I wouldn't want to try it? No, that doesn't mean that.
No, certainly. I'm not saying you shouldn't try it. I'm saying that let's say this thing exists, and if everyone were given it, everyone would choose to take it. What you end up with then is, well, it's basically the death of humanity. It's no longer humanity; it's something else, and it's basically just. But I guess maybe your thing was saying you would still like to do it. If by definition you'd like to do it, then you would choose to. But what that is presuming is that that's even still you.
This is kind of a spherical cow, though, because we don't have that ability to do that.
We don't.
To people.
Yeah, it's a thought experiment.
Right, and so, but I would argue it's a model that is a way dimensionally and sort of complexity wise reduced version of whatever is going on in reality.
Yeah, but it's an important. I think it's a useful one to probe.
Okay, so can I say something about that?
Yeah. Just interrupt, dude, because it's Paul.
Yeah, go. You could just cut us off.
And interrupt.
Yeah.
So first of all, I don't like. I would hope that we would become something other than humanity. I mean, like, if we don't, that would be kind of shitty, don't you think?
I mean, I do, but I wouldn't while I'm on drugs.
Okay. So maybe that's not your ideal solution, whatever. But I don't, and there's certainly the authenticity element that I would like, right? I don't want to lose that. But you're making the assumption that there can't be an authentic experience if your IQ isn't very high.
Oh, the experience is fully authentic, almost by definition. I don't think you can have it. I don't think the experience itself can be inauthentic. What it might map to, or what its original purpose, or its evolutionary sort of utility was, it's completely cut off from that. And basically, it becomes a question of, does it matter that it was cut off from that? I think whether or not it matters sort of depends on whether you want a life that has meaning or whether you don't care whether or not it has meaning.
Well, why would it not have meaning? Because we're in that state.
Because there's nothing that your experience is actually mapping to. It cannot be defined by anything but itself.
Yeah, I think you lost me at that.
Okay, so imagine. So I think right now, for example, I think nihilism was not a thing back when we were literally just like nomadic tribes hunting shit.
I disagree, dude. Look at Epicurus.
No, he was not nomadic.
That's a little too recent.
Yeah, I'm talking.
Well, there were nomadic peoples, right?
Yeah. I'm talking about back when like every day was a struggle not to die.
Okay, which there are even places where that's currently the case, and you're right about nihilism not being a thing.
Well, recorded history. You can't
actually, Edwin, you would know. How do you remember much nihilism back in Liberia? Well, actually, you might know.
I was
Albania. You were 6.
Talking to people about nihilism. I was just focused on playing soccer with my friends.
Right. But playing soccer is also a good example because
look, dude, like you can't say that in nomadic tribes people don't become nihilistic.
I can't say it 100%. I can say it's my hypothesis, and I bet like money on it, is that you are way more likely to become nihilistic if you're not in danger.
Which sometimes in times of plenty, that you would have like, okay, when you say in danger, like if you're looking at like the Americas, for example, there were dramatic differences between different tribes of Native Americans, and some of them were mostly doing the farming type stuff. Some of them were mostly sedentary type. I mean, they had like long homes and all sorts of. So you would have, I mean, like essentially from the, they didn't have a lot of genetic diversity to work with in the Americas. It was bottlenecked. So you would have a shifting. I believe you would have you'd have groups that are leaky units that like through time, but that had dramatically distinct like
where the evolutionary origin of
tribes would be.
What is the evolutionary origin of suicide?
Well, yeah, I would guess it has something to do with sort of it's not necrosis, but it's the target, the cell death. It would be a superorganismic eusocial version
like a eusocial apoptosis.
I mean,
and what's happening is that you do not have. It has become apparent to you that you do not have an immediate purpose to which that you are serving. So like, you're not doing anything for your community, so you don't have that purpose. You're not like trying to save even yourself. There's no like immediate danger or lions or shit. You don't have that purpose.
Wait, but I don't understand why people couldn't have, like, if you existed in the state of bliss, I don't understand why you couldn't have community. I don't understand why you wouldn't feel the need to do.
You could. I'm saying that you would. the optimum is probably somewhere around there, where you're still dealing with human interactions. I brought up the thought experiment to sort of
The politics is the
to
art
sort
of
of
the
point
possible.
out the issue of just going of trying to determine ethics simply based on what people are feeling. I think probably you can have a situation that like periodically everyone is miserable, and that might ultimately be better than a situation where everyone is happy all the time, but none of that happiness maps onto reality.
I don't understand how the happiness doesn't map
Yeah,
on.
I'm still also. You're acting like this is you're a gamer in that sense, at least that this can all be simulated accurately.
I'm not
I
saying
would
it
say
can.
it can.
I'm
But
saying,
just like,
I'm
okay,
saying if you could.
you say mapping onto reality.
I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I've seen great, dramatic, amazing ways to transfer
All right,
information.
wait, hang on. Go on,
All right.
Edwin.
When you say mapping onto reality, you mean they haven't done anything to earn that happiness?
Yeah, and nor is there anything that they could do to earn even more happiness. All they could do is maybe increase their dose.
I mean,
There are
I think
drugs,
that's the
Paul.
opiates.
Just use
Yeah,
hyper drugs,
and
right?
opiates led to way more suffering. Just like
Right. Just
family,
imagine,
not
right,
the
just
same
imagine
thing.
like
opiates.
whole
No, they're not
extended
the same
go
thing.
on for a
Just imagine
century.
super safe
Paul, they're not.
opiates with
Paul, they're
robust
not even
You
close.
said super safe opiates. Have there ever, in all of the history of the fucking universe, have there been super safe opiates?
Okay,
A molecule
Paul,
would do that to
Paul,
a brain, but
Paul,
wouldn't have a negative consequence.
Paul,
There-
That
There are
doesn't
things-
exist. I think that might actually be a feature of reality.
Paul,
maybe.
That's unavailable.
Maybe.
Well, it's
Okay,
never
okay,
been
go on,
proven to
Edwin.
be available.
Paul.
But
you can't say that it's not going to exist.
no, you're absolutely right. I can't. I can say it never has.
That what does that have to do with anything? We just started.
Existential risk. Because you can make this
I'm not
worse.
talking about
Trust me, he knows. He knows.
I'm not
That's-
talking about existential risk.
Thank you, by the way. Peace in the Korean Peninsula.
I'm not talking about existential risk.
No, I am. I brought it up as why a good
We're
reason to
talking
not.
about we're talking about whether objective morality can be said to exist or not.
Right.
But
And
Whether or not
You're
our thought
extrapolating-
experiment leads to
Extrapolating, but that's diluting the argument.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. If I would say if you see that's
So,
where the rationalists are like, what if, and then they forget that it's just an if.
Aaron, my point is that so I understand what you're saying, right? And you're right that there could be like some sort of amount there where it's sort of perfect. Like like 10% of our conscious experience, like very little of the suffering that we experience is probably necessary, right? So if we can figure out a way through drugs to eliminate all the unnecessary suffering and the suffering that we experience to lead to more growth.
Some suffering is unnecessary.
Wait, I have a trolley.
I don't know how much.
I have a trolley question. Okay. Let's say that you're in a relationship.
Finish.
Let's say you're in a relationship with.
Let me finish.
All right.
Oh, you're still talking?
I think he was. I interrupted him,
Oh, my
but
bad.
just for a brief
My
thing,
bad.
and
Yeah,
then
go on.
you're
Go
telling
on.
a joke now.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
He's fucked it up.
Go on.
If I can remember what I was saying now, thanks.
My bad. I'm mostly calls.
No.
Let's start.
But my point is that yes, in the optimal situation, you would have something where humans can grow, but that doesn't mean that a situation where people are experiencing peak well-being for basically an indefinite amount of time, that doesn't mean that it's worse than the experience that we're having now.
No, I don't think it's worse.
Huh?
No, I don't think that would be worse.
So then,
I'm not saying that utilitarianism is useless.
whether we should do it and whether it would be moral to do it.
I'm saying more that if you just focus on the utilitarian aspect, you lose something that seems to be essential, and you lose it in a way that you can't identify you've lost once you've accepted it.
Hey, I can agree with that.
That's why we said we try it.
No, you try it, and you would know that you can't identify that you lost it, but you still lost it.
Are you on my side of this argument?
I'm on my side.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
I'm saying, let's say that let's say the drug will only last 12 hours the first time you try it, and you try it, and you're like, yeah, it's great, I'm going to keep doing it. You will knowingly have chosen to do something that will have cut you off from like the actual authenticity of the thing. And once you're there, you'll know that you won't care about having been cut off from it. Which, like, okay, is it just because you don't care about it now, does that mean that it wasn't actually worth caring about?
Well, it depends. I mean, so that's a tricky question because if I could just go into my own zone and experience bliss, should I care about the rest of humanity?
In fact, you can know that they are doing the same thing.
It sounds cool then.
It sounds cool, right? But I mean, what has happened is now humanity is no longer humanity.
That's fine. As I said,
it might be fine, but I mean, perhaps there is some value to not having the death of everything that we know. I'm just putting that out there as a possibility. I'm totally fine with death of everything we know.
I agree that there is some value to that, and only what Paul would point out is existential risks. So I agree that the end state could be worse if we throw all of that out. But if we assume that it's not and we have some way of knowing, I don't see why that experience is necessarily worse.
You said, yeah, but do you see that it's necessarily better?
I think so.
You think so on the terms in which it was defined, and the reason I bring up the question is because I know it's very difficult for me to argue my way out of it because I've specifically defined it such that I cannot argue my way out of saying that's better. I've put all the constraints on saying that it's better, but the weird thing is that while I'm not in it, I still have some serious unease about it.
Oh yeah,
100%.
And why?
Whenever you're doing something,
for the same reason you don't want to delete your brain and after you've mind upload or whatever, right? It's a cloning problem. All right. Anyway, sorry. Identity.
Something radically departs from the quality of the experience that you've had. Always, the only type of experience that you know, of course, is going to make you uneasy.
Well, but
concept, but hypothetically, it would be better.
Yeah, I think hypothetically it would be, but it still seems like we've lost something.
Like it's permanent.
In the same way that, okay, let's say that you have your community, you have like a culture and everything, right? Mm-hmm. And your entire community now has the opportunity to move into like some hypothetical utopia.
What kind of culture, by the way? Because some cultures are super shitty.
Yeah, some cultures are super shitty. Let's say that yours is all right. It's pretty good. It's not the best thing in the world. By definition, it's not as good as the utopian culture.
Some bad ideas, some good ideas.
Right, but yeah,
mostly good.
Basically that.
Sort of.
But by definition, it's not as good as the utopian culture. But you've been offered the opportunity for everyone in your culture to go to the utopian culture. Now, if your culture takes that opportunity and they have to integrate, so like, great, they'll integrate. Everyone in that is now happier in the utopian culture, but that's the death of your old culture.
That's fine.
Your dirty Albanian culture.
Yeah.
No, I'm completely for that.
No more human trafficking.
Like I might be 100% for that.
I'd say I'm about 90%, and that 2% gnaws at me.
I'm just not attached to, like, and maybe this is just a function of me and living in so many different places, but it seems like attachment to culture is just kind of arbitrary.
Well, but have you ever been without it? Of one kind or another. Right now, you're embedded in one. I guess you would probably partly in Bay Area. Like nerds.
It's not to say that some cultures aren't better than others, and that I wouldn't want to live in, some cultures over others. But to say that I wouldn't want something that's better for the people in my culture because I'd be losing what I already have. I think people just form cultures when they exist, and people form cultures that they think is going to be better, right? So
yeah, here's another question, and this is kind of trolling. And yeah, I agree with where you're coming from. Like, I understand it completely.
Better for me, but I can make it shitty for everyone else, and it's better for me if I design it.
Let's say that you're in a relationship with someone, right? And you don't love them, but you can take a drug that'll make you love them.
I take the drug, I love them.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that's that premise of that movie with the fat chick, but he sees her as real skinny, and that totally wouldn't fly these days. But That movie, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think
I've seen the trailer for it.
Yeah, but you can keep taking a drug to be in love with that person.
That is so difficult because love is such a feels so authentic.
Emulate.
But I mean, like, okay, so let's put it this way: like, if your girlfriend could take, or you could take like a pheromone desensitizer, so that you remain in that like first year like lovey-dovey feeling, would you do it?
I think probably, yeah, but that's
your life choices might be.
I think probably that's a more
like long term.
Well, and then the question is, okay, so why don't you love this person? Because if the person is good for you, and they're like objectively a good person and everything, and you know,
see, this is what I mean. This is
why
why I asked the question
after the first year.
This is why I asked the question. The question
not objectively. Maybe like for all of the goals that you have, they make you better to that end. Or you think like, you know, the thing.
Or you can change your goals.
Whatever. My point is that
it's a compromise,
which is what the drug thing is.
You look at
changing your goals.
Perspective of what I want out of a relationship, not how I want to feel about a relationship, but what I want out of it. If this person is giving you that, and you have a drug that can make you, because when you say love, what do you mean?
Let's say they're not giving you that, but the drug.
What do you mean? What do you mean by love?
I mean, whatever you want it to be for the purposes of this question. I will change the question slightly.
That's impossible. That's impossible.
Love's impossible? That's dark, man.
When you say whatever you mean by this question, that's an impossible.
Whatever you mean by the word.
Well, I mean different things, by the way.
The Greeks all of the ones that you mean. Well, they have multiple words.
All of the ones that you mean, right? Whether it's eros or agape or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say that this person doesn't meet your goals generally, whatever you want out of life. But taking this drug changes your goals so that it's in line with that.
I think that was an episode of House.
Well, I mean,
oh no, they gave him electroshock there.
Well, I wouldn't do that, but that's not because if you feel this, that has less to do with if you feel something, then that's all that matters. I wouldn't do that because I think that there are better options.
Okay, what if that was the case every time that let's say everyone that you've ever dated, it didn't felt like they met your goals.
They what?
For everyone that you've ever dated, it felt like they didn't meet your goals, but you could take a drug that would fix it. Would you choose to just take the drug?
No.
Or would you just be single?
No, I would try to find another girlfriend.
No, let's say like you're pretty sure there's like 5 girls in the world, and you dated all of them.
Well, yeah, then I take the drug because I want to get pussy.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. So, but ultimately, it seems a lot like you're going toward this. You want the authenticity thing. You want there to be some objectively real thing that you are striving toward. So you want to meet your own goals. You prefer to meet your own goals rather than have your goals change to where they are already met.
No, because you're extrapolating from.
You're kind of selfish.
No. Because you're extrapolating from the hypothetical about love to the hypothetical about the 5 IQ indefinitely. Because if I take your conclusion at its face and transmute that to the previous hypothetical,
it's not so much a conclusion. It's just an example. It's just one sort of edge case where like you can identify perhaps there is an importance to the object or the goal that is out there in the world versus the changing of yourself internally.
Well, I mean, you're assuming that I couldn't have goals if I was in a state of.
I'm gonna get the charger. I'll be right back. I forgot.
I'm saying that I'm not saying that you couldn't have, but I'm saying that it's clear that it would be optimal for you not to in terms of this ideal drug.
Why is that?
Because it would just make you happy all the time. If you have a goal, it means there's something that you haven't accomplished. It means you are not as happy as you could be.
It's not true.
Unless your happiness is inherently in striving for a goal, which I argue probably is true.
But happiness could be more about the striving than the goal itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that's probably true.
I don't understand why you couldn't strive. I don't understand why you couldn't strive if you were in a state of bliss.
What would you? I mean, because you'd be striving for a higher state of bliss.
Okay, so there's an example for I think this is in 1984 where the person was optimized for like a really narrow thing, right? And it was just it's a brave new world, but like their entire existence was like something like really really narrow.
Mm-hmm.
But they got complete pneumonia, complete, just they loved their life, even though they were doing something that
so much.
You and I think
all
like
the time.
Similar thing in like Snow Crash actually, where it's like you are just whether it's like pizza delivery or something.
Yeah.
Totally into it, and that's what you do.
Yeah, just Adderall.
Yeah.
So Edwin, Adderall's a great example of this too. But Edwin, remember when it was like it was your birthday actually. But Mike brought up, or no, you brought up telomeres. But we were talking about life extension. I think this is sort of analogous in the sense that Mike told me, I think he told me this later, or I think he brought this up at the time, but he said that telomere, just extending telomeres out doesn't deal with the actual problem that the telomere is down for. It's a mutation. Oh,
I disagree with him on that.
Oh, and I guess I guess it's actually probably the more direct experience.
If we're talking about specific like DNA repair mutations.
Well, cancer causing, so it might be a holistic, FBC.
Cancer causing could happen for other reasons, but if the cancer has to do with mutations based on cell proliferation, I think like those specific mutations can definitely be accounted for by lengthening telomeres.
It's the specific part that I think it's like with the dogs. That's another scale of the same thing that I think I'm talking about, where I think that biological matter is a distinct state of matter. Like the boundaries of it they have a continuous world line. They can only get made by a previous one.
And I gotta head out to.
Okay, so I would say that wait, what?
I got a shower and I gotta head out.
Okay, so I would say
it's fun. See you, Edwin.
So I think that there's like a necessarily dynamic component to life where cells I don't think they're meant to live that long.
No cell is going to live that long. That's why they're dividing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, cell lines, germ lines. Actually, I guess would be the only. Yeah. Okay, you're right. Yeah. I mean, I guess some cells live for fucking ever, but like it's like neurons or something.
I don't know.
There's some stuff but yeah, that wasn't what I was talking about. You're right. So, but germ would be like germline stuff. You need to rethread the needle basically with recombination and I think the germline
stuff is like completely different from this.
Well, it would be, I suppose, if they live too long, or if the cell lines live too long without selecting down to the ones that are still healthy. If you sort of force them to live long, you get cancer.
The ones that are the most healthy.
You die of cancer because you get cancer when they mutate over the ones that like by like your 60s, you're full of cancer. This is Paul Davies, the physicist who got an NIH grant to study all this stuff.
Reason for that, right?
There's a specific reason?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's the telomere.
Body turns down cancer.
There's the telomere stuff, but then there's also like there are repair proteins.
Yes. But then there are also if the DNA level stuff fails, there are still ways of inhibiting the
that's my
like there's all the benign things that doctors think are cancer at first. Oh, okay, phew, we biopsied it and it's not growing in a petri dish or whatever. So that's like
I just think whatever it is that's causing the disrepair, we can fix that.
Fix it, but it always seems like a stopgap measure. And you're kind of fighting against entropy.
Stopgap measure.
It's like biological entropy. It would be the thing where the only way to perform the restorative function is to actually procreate. It fits into the big web of sort of selecting out the mutations that get fit into the.
I don't know. I mean, so like consider vampire therapy.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, where are you going to get all those blood boys?
Well, it's not. Well, like assume an infinite supply.
All right, so we've conquered the galaxy. So that's Peter Thiel and Elon Musk
The galaxy, dude.
are just running off of our blood, and that the reason that they took us to Mars was so that they could have an off-world colony.
Figured out a way to make the blood authentic.
God, this is what Aaron was just doing. Why does everyone? I mean, you're absolutely right. It's a possibility.
Like
it's a possibility.
Let's say we make babies without brains.
Right. That would be one way to do this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But my point is that if that's the case, I mean, you can call that a stopgap measure or whatever. But if you could continually do that, and you can still get cancer or whatever, but your odds of doing it or of getting cancer are the same as like a young person. I don't see that as a stopgap measure. I mean, technically, it's all stopgap measures since like you'll have to continually do something to live indefinitely.
Right.
So if
life is a series of stopgap measures. It's is it to be conscious?
It's not a stopgap
in peril.
Same way of like
we're Petersonian again.
It's not a stopgap measure in the same way like taking a drug to make sure that your bipolar disorder doesn't get out of hand. It's not.
I do think that there are. I mean, that is a stopgap measure. We don't know what's actually wrong, so we're probably fucking up a bunch of other systems in an effort to kind of, hopefully that fixed the. I mean, it's like putting down a peasant rebellion without actually, figuring out why they're mad or trying to.
My point is, it's not the same thing, right? So, like with telomeres, we're understanding like the basis of mutation, and we're fixing it. It's not the same thing as, just like doing something to make sure that your epilepsy doesn't flare up.
Well, I don't think cancer's like the causality of cancer. I don't know how well hashed out that has. We know that there are mutations that show up when you get certain types of cancer.
I'm not saying that there aren't. I'm saying that for that specific way in which we get cancer.
Yeah, there's certain ways that it could be. Almost certainly, it's just a series of like viral stuff. I think the cancer causes.
But then my point is, if you can assume that in that way, you can prevent it. Which I mean, I think we're going to be able to cure most of cancer.
I hope. I think it's going to turn out to be a computational problem, though. I think it's going to be like D-Wave will cure cancer or something.
Prostate cancer is basically cured.
Really?
If you catch it early enough?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it would be like screening, and that's one way to cure it is to have like what was that
some sort of
female Steve Jobs who what was that the startup that just collapsed and everyone's suing everyone and it had like what?
Theranos?
Theranos. Maybe it's Theranos. But it had like Kissinger. Did you know Kissinger was on the funding or whatever board? Anyway, all right. So, but they had a medical device. What'd you say?
So I was
leaning in. Because I said a thing, I didn't hear that either. All right, one more time. I'm gonna turn it up. All right, go.
So was James Mattis.
Oh, that was about what I thought I'd heard, but I don't know who James Matters is.
No, you haven't heard of Mad Dog Mattis, the Secretary of Defense?
Oh, right. You've mentioned him. I think you've mentioned him on the podcast before, or maybe on one of the ones we didn't put on. Yeah.
Well, he's like the most accomplished U.S. general since like World War II.
Mattis, right? Mattis? Mm-hmm. Mad Dog Mattis.
Anyway, so yeah. We're talking about something that just went really deep.
Oh, yeah, I went way off on a tangent. Okay, so just the telomeres, and I think that biologically it is similar. I mean, it's not just similar. We are actually that world line. And it's a bunch of cells doing it that are defining ethics.
How is this similar?
So I was saying that there are things that are like just arbitrarily extending telomeres that exist in that might be like putting, like you mentioned, the blood boy. You get a whole hierarchy of blood boys, but you would need a kingdom of blood boys, which is perhaps the goal. But to just keep Peter Thiel just young and virile. Anyway, so that's yours. Oh, right. So you had said, what if we can simulate it? And I was like, oh, haha, that's exactly like.
I didn't say what if we can simulate.
Well, what if we can clone isn't that a simulation of a blood boy? Is making one that's ethically
Before
not.
the blood boy, we're talking about like objective morality.
Yes, right. But we were talking about that in the. So the blood boy thing was an extension of the telomere analogy from objective morality that
Yeah,
made
but how
Erwin
does the
leave.
telomere analogy?
He doesn't like it when I talk about biology.
Okay. So I mean, I don't think my point about this entire conversation has been too complicated. I just think, yeah, I think morals are objective. Like if you make one assumption, which is that like well-being is the end goal, and some things are better and worse for well-being. And I'm saying that well-being has to be the end goal if you're a human.
But increasing well-being and preventing, especially when they don't appear with nearly the same frequency or and they aren't considered as severe, but increasing well-being and preventing problems, we still live in this thermodynamic peril of like, there's the privacy. We all want the privacy of like.
It's not. Okay,
I gotta
like,
but no, this is pretty relevant. We all want the privacy of like a place to shit in private, right? But terrible things happen in bathrooms, partly because of that privacy that we are all allowed. That is a thing we all, as a right, as an American with a butt, I'm gonna go put it on a thing, and I'm not gonna get disturbed. And that means that there's this special private place that's within a walking distance of a lot of important places that terrible shit can happen in. I mean, it's not that frequent because, you split them up and you do that. But like they're technically like, or at the very least, you can go do heroin and have an OD, and it would be hard for them to find you because you're in a private space. So my point is that if like toxoplasma made people just start ravenously running into bathrooms and violating people all the time, we might actually get rid of that taboo. It might push it enough that we'd say, all right, Jesus, I can poop in front of people if I'm not going to get, stabbed by a crazy person. But so, and indeed in the world, I mean, in wartime, if you're in the trench, you don't really care that people are but it would be a massive violation to just barge into someone's, some random old person. You just like, hi, it's your bathroom. It's not really that big a deal. This is all morality. It shifts. If this were another scenario, it would. But so in that moment, there is a bad and there's a good, and you can feel them out. Like you really should know not to do a lot of the bad things, but they're gonna change based on circumstance and based on unknown circumstance. Like an unknown like I don't even know what I'm not gonna know. What I don't know really, but
okay, but I made this point, which is that all of these things you can say may be true, and morals can still be objective.
What? No, I was saying they're not. But what are the morals then? Is it privacy is a moral? And it's
I may not be able to say to you right now what the most moral thing is. I can make arguments for it.
It's like describing a smell. It's intuition.
No, you're okay. I have to just
I can tell you a bad smell.
Let me go.
Okay, go.
That I don't know what like. Can you agree? Not thinking about whether we may be able to determine what is moral or not based on information, unlimited information, right? Like you can say it could end up this way or it could end up that way. We don't really know. Like we may not want to get rid of privacy, even though like really bad things could happen. I agree with you, right? So, but to me, that's like doing the actual moral computation. So you're saying we may not have enough information to make this decision. I could say, well, I think we actually do have enough information. I could say, you might be right. But that sort of doesn't go to whether or not morals are objective. What goes to whether or not morals are objective is whether we can assume the axiom, which is that we should seek to maximize human well-being.
But what if I'm a Bond villain?
Okay, so that's the more interesting question. Would a Bond villain want the most suffering for everyone all the time?
There was that one that wanted to kill everyone on Earth, but have the blonde and blue-eyed people would go up to the spacecraft, and I don't remember if he actually had a German accent or anything, but he had his like homoerotic fantasy was like 50 families or whatever would repopulate the planet. It was like a Nazi thing. But the
I would say he's morally confused, but
he sounds like a step away from Aaron technically, but not really. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that person is morally confused, and to
stay away from zero.
To say that morals are objective doesn't. Okay, so first, let me go back. That person obviously thinks like increasing well-being is important. He just thinks it's more important for certain groups of people because they're more deserving of it than others. But that person's fundamental assumption does include increasing the well-being of his tribe. Now, you can say, well, humans do the same thing. We assume the well-being of our tribe, and we like kill animals for the well-being of our tribe. The fact that we kill animals, I don't think anybody would suggest is inherently immoral. It's based on the fact that we need to. If we didn't need to, then we could say, okay, maybe we should kill them.
I can find you people who would say it is.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But my point, though, is that that's a point of disagreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
that may change over time.
But people are still arguing on the axiom of well-being, right? They're just talking about how to get to it.
Right, but what if you go full animal liberation front? You go through PETA into total crazy town. You start firebombing research labs where they're curing cancer, and because they're also torturing monkeys and stuff, but which is bad. But if you're I can actually sympathize with someone who's kind of on the moral quest like that. But if they start killing humans, then you're like, well, shit. Now that's not they've crossed some line that's fuzzy, but that they clearly crossed way.
I don't think it's fuzzy.
Well, some people would wait till they killed a few humans. I wouldn't. That's fuzzy.
Okay, right? So this actually falls in the context of maximizing well-being as well, because what those people are trying to do is maximize the well-being of animals.
Other biological matter that they consider
creatures, right? They're saying humans, like we're all conscious. Humans are maximizing their well-being at the extent of animals, and that's not fair. Okay, we can disagree about that, and that it's not moral. We can disagree about that, right? But the question is still fundamentally about maximizing well-being of conscious creatures. And I would actually argue that maximizing the well-being of conscious creatures is actually the ultimate, like we're set
in that system. Aaron's suggestion of the 5 IQ is bad. That's a really bad thing, right? They would be less conscious, I assume. I don't know what 5 IQ is.
That's not what I mean. I think from a practical perspective, like you have to worry about your own tribe before you worry about others. So you have to worry about whether
you will. You don't have to, but you will by nature of the fact that you exist.
It's the same
and all the people who fuck to make you.
Nobody wants the worst possible suffering for everyone in the world, and the reason is that nobody wants the worst possible suffering for themselves. They might want to kill. Like I can see somebody wants to kill everybody else.
But people kill themselves and torture themselves sometimes. I can imagine those co-occupying self-hatred and world hatred. They probably do.
Yeah, but okay, so self-hatred and world hate, like some masochistic stuff where you like beat yourself up or whatever. That's still stuff that you feel like you can handle. But if I
no, like people who are like I got drunk and ran over my son in a car or something and killed him. Like they hate themselves. I don't know. Yeah, that type of person, I could see them being in a hell where their system is like, I hate myself.
That if you gave that person the option of being waterboarded for the rest of for as long as the universe exists, that person would not take that option.
Right. Yeah, that's the pain because So you're saying just because you can push pain to the limit, which I agreed on like way back in the beginning. I was like, pain is definitely it feels objective. It's so many overlapping subjectivities there that yeah, I can see that the bad it might be feel very well defined. But the good was what I was saying was the thing that you have to like. It's like you have to eke it out over generations. It's like this very
Eking it out over generations doesn't say that there isn't. It just means that you're getting more information.
What do you mean? You're getting, but but type of information, dynamic information, biological information can't you can't easily clone it. That's one property of it. It's not easily you can't this is part of the reason that like with organic food,
So you're saying
all
it's
the stuff we
inaccessible.
eat comes from what?
So you're saying it's inaccessible.
Maybe inaccessible.
That
There are certainly proven functions that just you can't they don't grow very big. You just can't you don't know what they're gonna be like modular modular
let's really take this out.
exponentiation. Yeah.
Let's really take this out there. It's pretty much impossible to have perfect information of a system that you exist inside of.
Yes. Agreed.
What if we existed outside of that system?
I don't even know what that would be like, but you're totally tripping me out, man. I don't know.
No, but you know what I mean, though.
Existed outside that system.
Hypothetically, it is possible.
It does sound, yeah, it would be awesome, I'm sure. Or maybe
it is possible for me to explain everything about this pen.
Probably not. Anyone. What does it mean to explain everything about?
Not the history.
You can design new aspects of the language and talk about whole new contexts for things. I don't know. And then the world could change, and then the pen's context changes. Like maybe pens in the future are made in a little 3D printed thing, and the lattice crystals.
But that's totally not the point.
You said, is it possible to describe everything about this pen? You said, and I mean not down to the particle.
I mean, maybe not yet, but hypothetically, it is possible.
No, if our physics changes a lot.
Yeah.
If it turns out that certain assumptions that are not proved to be true, but that really seem to be true, if it turns out that those are in fact false, then it may be possible. You might have a deterministic or like a hidden variable or like there's a lot of proposed. There's things that sound increasingly classical until you just realize it's like one crazy Russian guy who's just got a chip on his shoulder against the universe, and he's been senile now for a decade, but he has tenure, and it's just a weird. There's no one. This is like the Scott Alexander compared these people to the knight, or no, not the Knights Who Saved Me. It's the Black Knight, right? You've chopped my arm off. No, you haven't.
Okay.
Or wait, I've chopped your arm off.
For those instances, that confirm to what's the name of that theorem again, where you can prove everything? Gödel's incompleteness theorem.
Oh, right. So within a system of logic,
those instances where the incompleteness theorem applies, right?
Yeah, that's every language where you can say a Gödel sentence, which is like a whole other but it's like basically where you can have sort of arbitrary self-reference and then peg that to a number, and then those systems, which like to do anything interesting, that's like calculus and arithmetic is like, or algebra, whatever. But piano arithmetic, yeah, arithmetic is like that. There are lots of systems that are not like that, and they're studied. They're just not. They're simple.
My point is, let's assume that because of the information problem, we're talking about morality. That is actually a feature when you're talking about morality.
Yes, agreed.
So we can say, okay, let's take that and put it aside. For everything else that's functional, or at least close to functional, where it is possible to get enough information, it's possible to imagine getting enough information, that there is objectively a better and worse way to approach that instance, to say this is better for well-being and this is worse for well-being.
This is the problem. Is you're saying if a system is sufficiently constrained that you can, it's all knowable, that all sayable sentences
are
provable,
because we're not going to have all the information.
Right, but you you're still just saying if like chess is right. It's a finite game. You know, you could technically have a book with every page is all the
Exactly. For
possible
any given moral
combos.
situation, there will be
Go to the
finite.
fucking Centauri.
For any given moral situation.
Actually, it would be more than there are atoms in the universe. But
yeah. It's not even finite. You can keep playing the sequences forever.
What, and just get caught in loops?
Yeah.
All right.
And then
Wait, no, because games end after a certain amount of right. Okay, you're saying you can just play a game. Okay, those seem like trivial. No, I think it's like a permanent. It is a draw, right? Or no? I don't know.
Call a draw. It's like no pieces of any, like 40 moves and shit.
40 moves?
Yeah.
You're allowed to call a draw. Oh, which would be the incentive of the guy who's gonna lose anyway if he makes one wrong move. Okay.
If the guy who makes one wrong move can not make a wrong move for 40 moves and not get eaten at all, then he can call a draw and the game's forced to draw.
That implies an impressive stupidity on it because there's only so many moves. Now it really is a simple game in terms of the. I guess there's all
that rule is made because probably when you like entered a situation where like you can't, where if both sides play perfectly, no one can win.
Right. So at the master level, that's the only version of that. But I was picturing like some idiot who's, I beat him, and then they just can't. They have like 50 or
master level.
10. Yeah. And but what was I gonna say? Anyway, what were you saying, Edwin? Did you get all that?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, good. Then they did too.
Just.
So right, Gödel. Okay, so if the system is complex enough to say a Gödel sentence, one of the hallmarks of that is that there are statements that are sayable but not provable from within the system. So you mentioned stepping outside of it. That's relevant because but I don't know. I don't know what would happen. It's also another system that I don't occupy, which would be the one outside the universe. I only occupy the universe as far as I know. Maybe I'm an eternal being. What?
Can God prove that he doesn't exist?
Can God microwave a burrito so hot that he himself could not eat it?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love the Simpsons version of that with Flanders. And he could, but then he could. Oh, and he's like bouncing back and forth in his head between the two. He's kind of caught in a loop, basically, of logic. But I think that was the point. Now that I think about it, but. And yet he is happier than, but which is also the point. The Simpsons is deep. All right, what were we talking about? Anyway. So Gödel sentences. Right, so there'll be sentences in that system, statements, all the ones that are proven true or axioms, I guess. But the initial ones that are built up from whatever the initial axioms are, which I guess you'd be right in saying that there's although we're talking about these are two different things. Within a system of logic, if you can say a Gödel sentence in it, you get this class of statement that can be stated but not proven within that system. So it's like you have to give a third category at the very least. You have to say it's not proved. It's the Scottish verdict, actually. My people, my Patriline. I don't know anything about Scotland. I went to a Highland Games festival.
I just don't think you can say
like Burniston.
Like just because they're irrational numbers or you can't divide 1 by 0 doesn't mean that mathematics doesn't work if you assume certain axioms.
No, mathematics does work. It works incredibly well.
Right.
But it worked so well that it was able to prove the limits of its own of rationality. That's what rationality eventually leads you to. That's sort of Nietzschean, but the end point of this was the RSA would always put this at the beginning of their clip would be the intro. But the end point of rationality is to prove its own the limit of rationality or something like that. But which is kind of almost because the limit would be the end point. That's just a tautology. But the idea that would be a point is interesting. But you're kind of expanding out when you're rationally defining the world, and then you're like, oh, there's all these things that we're never going to be able to define. They're like traveling salesman of a. What?
I mean, there are certain things we can like philosophically say to be true, right?
Right, but climate change probably isn't one of them. It looks very true, and the mechanism seems totally. I'm scared. but technically it's weather. I mean, that's how people see it, as chaos. And there's certain chaos where if it's constrained on a thing, on a boundary of some kind, then you can make predictions that are very reliable. Like in a pipe, you could tell it'll be hot.
Largely constrained on a boundary. But I hate even going down this line because I think the original point I made kind of encapsulates what I was trying to say, which is that for any given, like, there is a right moral answer. Like, to the extent that we can have enough information about any given thing, there's a right or wrong moral answer to any given moral question.
Okay, but like, abortion. I'm just gonna talk about the one that last day or whatever. Because this does happen occasionally, right? Where you're like, I'm gonna go vacuum out, chop it up, pluck it out bit by bit.
My argument,
it's a partial birth abortion. It's the one they bring up as like the horrifying thing. Doing that to a recently born infant would be like the worst type of crime. That would be like, oh my God, that
Peter Singer
baby.
Singer actually argues that
I know these people are crazy.
The moral stance would be that you should be able to kill that baby. But here's
all the way up to the age of 9. I think that's you can abort. You could be like, I didn't want to do this.
So here's the thing. I agree with him in certain respects, but if
it happens through a consenting vagina, then it's legal.
Why I would say that we shouldn't do that, and again, this is a moral question. I think it's like Westworld, right? If you have, if you know these things don't feel, is it okay for you to just go and treat them as badly as you possibly can, rape them, like, pedophilia, whatever, right? Is that okay? Well, I would argue that allowing humans to access some of those base instincts actually makes those people worse off and makes society worse off.
It's like people torturing animals, and then you're like, well, we do that to eat them as well, but that implies something about that person on another level.
So that would be my moral basis for objecting to that. Not that we would be decreasing the well-being of a conscious being, because I don't think babies are conscious. Not in any, they are, but not like they don't have awareness in any meaningful way. They don't have they don't have an illusion of self.
They certainly started learning pretty fast.
They do.
So
neural nets can learn. That doesn't mean they have an awareness of self or an illusion of self.
Yeah. Learn the inklings while still in the womb, like they can learn the phonemes of the language that they're going to use to do things that neural nets can't do.
I agree. I don't think the capacity for neurons to recognize patterns is the same as awareness, like having an illusion of self. I think that's different.
Roger Penrose agrees. Or maybe he would say it's not an illusion, probably. I don't know what he would say. But he agrees that it's not awareness. Someone mentioned a neural net in like a talk he was giving. Like they brought it up as a question. And it was really like a well-worded question. He was like, I don't think that's awareness at all. I think that's pattern recognition.
Right.
The guy was like, beep boop, what's the difference? And that is possibly the problem with the rationalists, maybe.
I think the difference is narrative.
Oh, that's very Westworld of you. No, but yeah, the narrative that's just generally isn't that very implying a fuzz thing, right?
Isn't that very what?
Isn't that implying fuzzy ethics then, or moral or ethics?
I don't.
If you're saying it depends on the narrative. I tell a sad story about this side. It's like a law. Law is a fuzzy plus a.
What makes you is the fact that you have a narrative of you.
I have a what?
What makes you, true yourself,
yeah,
and to other people who know you, is that you and the other people have a narrative of who you are, and you do too. And you do too.
That's true.
I think that's what differentiates you from a baby.
I always thought of the thing that separated, like the things that if I was going to group humanity and like if I tried to pick a unit for like, okay, the guy in the coma for 30 years, I'm not going to, if the tornado is coming, you prioritize the other people. But like if I was going to try to group all of humanity, what?
I would totally prioritize the dude in the coma.
Yeah.
Because like imagine he wakes up later and everyone's dead.
That's true. That's Twilight Zone.
You always want to like keep the one alive who has the most interesting story.
Oh, I gotcha. Like, okay, well then that's the premise of Futurama. Okay, but what was I talking about? Oh, so you might like, so if I was trying to pick out a group that would encapsulate all of humanity, I was going with the window into the universe. They all have, I mean, with an equally valuable, because I know people vary a bunch along vectors that I do care about, but I can't devalue them.
Say that the narrative. I say narrative is the same as window into the universe.
The window into the universe is the initiation of the narrative, but I'm arguing that it's starting. I'm actually saying, I mean, pre-birth, because they're picking up like the language they're gonna learn. That seems, I don't know. It depends on whether it's a lookup table or if it's a holistic object. If it's something that can't be well defined in an instant, but is sort of smear. We're smears, Aaron. Does that feel good? Is it better to? Humans are all a big smudge through time.
Yeah, we're big smudge through time. But if we could,
we're what?
We're big shit streaks.
Yes. Yes.
It is a big smudge through time.
Underwear.
If we assume that the
fabric of the underwear.
If we assume that humans, accessing those baser instincts and killing people for their convenience isn't a problem, and we could actually figure out exactly when it switches from pattern recognition to narrative, then there's a good argument for killing babies up like 4, 5, 6, whatever, right? But I'm obviously not for it because I'm saying like.
Neither am I.
Because I'm saying it's about narrative, but it's also about the effect that it has on other people.
That's okay. So that there was a funny moment in like a interview with that fucking stoner guy, half Jewish, half Italian. He got roasted James Franco. He was great in The Disaster Artist. You guys see that? Have you seen this? Or whatever. James Franco. He was getting interviewed by like an ethicist. She was like a bioethicist, and she was making the argument that if you kick a pregnant woman in the stomach and kill her baby, that's a serious crime that you've committed if she wanted to have that kid. But if you perform an abortion, that is not the same crime, which I would agree with this moral reasoning here that she was making, more on her side in this. Yeah, but he did point out that her reasoning, like the actual, at the end she said the thing that separated those two cases had nothing to do with the person performing the crime. It was that it was that nothing to do with
wishes
of the crime. That it was the people cared about one, and that made that a valuable thing, and that people didn't care about the other one, that made that not like that they didn't want it, and that was what made that fetus not valuable. And the problem there is that like if you just extend that into life, there's a lot of people in this world who are suffering because they're unwanted. They feel, and so her argument was that logic plus the impermeable boundary of the vaginal walls that of course forms a discrete instant in all of space-time. And after that, if you're like a hobo and you're like, nobody loves me, it's still not okay to kill that person because the reasoning doesn't pan out that way. So I guess you would argue the narrative of the hobo is the thing that, even though if they're hated by everyone, or they just no one knows them or loves them, or they're on a spaceship and they were raised by AI, or I don't know.
I actually don't know. I have to think about that one.
Yeah, it's a pickle. There's no way to fucking thread the needle. I try. I've thought about this forever, and so I think that you have to sometimes just to kind of fall back on other systems.
Yeah, I'll definitely think about that one. That's a good hypothetical.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But it was
I
just
gotta go.
interesting that James Franco called him out. Okay, yeah. All right, good podcast. Onward and upward.
Yeah.